It's your boy Young and Hefe. Don't care about number what the check say.
Crippy and you a menace.
Yeah. It's a lot of little boys out here talking that talk, but ain't spinning and walking that walk. 5 bills to get you whacked, 50 shots up in this Mac, face shots to make the news, we just step when they relax, group chats to get you tapped, forehead up in my lap, when they pump we run it back, tell my youngin' cut no slack, 5 bills to get you whacked. What's the good old big deal with the good old people, man? It's your boy Young and Hefe. Don't care about number what the check say. Make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe, because it don't cost you nothing to press that button. And if you ring that notification bell, I'm going to bring you mail. What's the good old big deal with the good old people? It's Hot Topics with your boy Young and Hefe. And the recipient of Hot Topics is going to be Tookie. That's right. Stanley Tukey Williams, you know what I'm saying? That's who we got on Hot Topics today. So I was sliding down social media, you know, watching some of those good gang documentaries, and I had ran into a few segments on Stanley Tukey Williams. So, you know, I decided to merge these segments, you know, and give my spin and my take as far as the health effect. Now, the reason why I chose this because this was monumental, you feel me, for the beginning stages of me, you know what I'm saying, and which led me astray in the beginning, you know what I'm saying, of me, you know what I'm saying, hopping off the porch. So I was sitting here trying to think of the time in remembrance that I first heard of the name Tookie, and I just could not come myself to format and bring myself. But I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say that I think the first time that I really became familiar in or heard of Tookie and started getting to understand for his identity and who he was in the Monster Cody book, as well as I tell a lot of people that Monster Cody in the beginning was instrumental, you know what I'm saying, to me being off the porch, you know what I'm saying, and cripping and stuff like that. So reading his book, you know, Tookie name come up a few times as far as, you know what I'm saying, who he looked up to coming up. They stayed on the same block. He was a young dude, you know, at Tookie House buffing, you know what I'm saying. He said these dudes, you know what I'm saying, will be off that PCP all day, you know what I'm saying, getting looted off that Sherm, you know what I'm saying. That's all they did. So at an early age, he was on to the same thing. Now, as coming up in the halls and acquiring as well as thrusting myself into the fire as far as obtaining a reputation and building your name, Monster and both Tookie was instrumental people, you know what I'm saying, and they both had books. And as I got into gangbanging, as I got into working out and stuff like that, Monster book was instrumental. It was like a Bible to me because we was from the same hood. And then Tookie was right there up a close second. You know, although Tookie wasn't A-Tray, Tookie was Westside Crip, and Tookie was off 69th Street, which is the A-Tray's territory. You know what I'm saying? And he's rotated, you know what I'm saying, with, you know, that community. You know what I'm saying? That is his community. You know what I'm saying? That is his community. Westside Crips, by way of the A-Tray gangsters, you know what I'm saying, when they made their transition and wanted their own identity and break away from the West Side thing. Now, going through the halls, camps, all that, anybody that been there with me, Baby Tookie was a nickname that the police had gave me because I was also of African American descent. I was crippin'. I was out the same area as Tookie. I had a big afro, and you know what I'm saying, you know, I was on swole, you know, I was right. That's all I did, buffed every day. Any police in that jail that knew me, two things they gonna say about me is, oh, who Ant from A-Tray, you know what I'm saying, and or the government, oh, he's quiet, he gonna whoop some feet, and he's gonna bust down and work out. And that's just how it went, man. stayed minding my business, but with trouble, you know what I'm saying, leered and hopped out, I definitely handled my business, you feel me? I definitely pushed the cold line, you know what I'm saying? When lines thought they was going to entwine with mines and or be pressed. So that was a nickname that I had from the police, and I wore that nickname well, you know what I'm saying, decoratedly well. You know, I even had police go on websites and computers and blow pictures up for me and Tookie and all type of stuff like that. Like I said, that's how I was rocking. They used to call me Baby Tookie for sure. Now, as of during that time, like in the beginning, Tookie was everything for me because I was under the impression that he was the founder of the Crips, that he was King Crip. That's how I was being sold. But later on, getting higher, you know what I'm saying, in advanced levels, you know what I'm saying, in this gang lifestyle, whether it was from a camp to a leap to YA, from a leap to YA to, you know what I'm saying, the penitentiary, you know what I'm saying, I started learning. And like you run across a group of Crips and everybody else has different stories, you know what I'm saying, everybody want to insert themselves in the story, everybody, oh, I was there for when this happened, all type of stuff. But through all the history and stuff I've learned, I've come to what I think, what is the truth. Tookie was not the founder nor co-founder, you know what I'm saying? The founder was Raymond Washington, and I wasn't there. This is just my opinion, you know what I'm saying? And this is just my belief from talking to different people and rotating. Donald Archie will be the co-founder as far as the West Side. Now, you're going to have a lot of other hoods because they might beef with your hoods. They older homies going to say this. They going to thrust themselves in there. Oh, no, it wasn't like this or it wasn't like that. Hey, it is what it is. Everybody got an opinion. I'm just telling you mine. So, from there, Donald Archie, which is Sweetback, from my understanding, is the person who inserted Tookie and brought Tookie around, you know what I'm saying, after the merge with him and Raymond Washington. And it just seems that Tookie was more into character to where everybody else played the backfield. He was the one on swole, willing to get on camera, and probably was around there kicking up a lot of dust, you know what I'm saying? And, you know what I'm saying, bulldozing and being on that to where that stigma stuck with him. Like, oh, man, this him, man. He the one, you know what I'm saying? So it happens like that sometimes. But I don't want to hold you guys any longer, you know what I'm saying? We about to get into this content, and you already know it's the halfway and the half effect. We're going to commentate.
In the 1940s, black gangs first spawned in LA and spread south and west by the 50s and 60s. In the late 60s, Raymond Washington, a fabled street fighter, sought to unite these gangs under one banner. He clicked up with Stanley Tukey Williams, another feared street fighter and bodybuilder known citywide. However, not all the gangs fell in line, and those that didn't form the rival Bloods gang. And by the 70s, the rivalry led to escalating gunplay. The violence surged on through the decade, and Tookie became a victim himself. While recovering from a 1976 drive-by shooting, Tookie redeveloped an addiction to PCP, a mind-altering drug otherwise known as Sherm. It helped him deal with the stress of living a double life. By day, Tookie worked as a counselor in boys' homes, urging them to ditch the gang life and preaching the virtues of bodybuilding. But by night, he was a PCP-fueled menace that made a reputation for beating and robbing drug dealers. By the end of the decade, the gang life would take both Raymond and Tookie off the streets for good. After 5 years in prison, Raymond was mysteriously murdered on a street corner in August 1979, shortly after his release. As for Tookie, 1979 would be his last year on the streets as well, after his drug-fueled capers came to a head. On a late Tuesday evening on February 28, 1979, a 24-year-old Tookie, Darryl, Alfred Blackie Coward, and Tony Sims were plotting a robbery. They pulled up to a 7-Eleven where the 26-year-old clerk, Albert Lewis Owens, was sweeping the parking lot. When the crew rolled up, unaware of the threat, Owens left his cleaning tools behind and went inside to serve them. As Darryl and Sims moved toward the cash register, Tookie slipped behind Owens, pulled a shotgun from under his jacket, and coldly told Owens to shut up and keep walking. He marched Owens to the back room where he allegedly shot out the CCTV and shot Owens twice in the back as he lay on the floor. The next chapter in the robbery spree unfolded on March 11, 1979, at the Brookhaven Motel in South Central LA, a motel run by an immigrant Taiwanese family the Yangs. A 76-year-old father, his 63-year-old wife, their 43-year-old daughter, and their son Robert. At around 5 a.m. that day, Tookie stormed into the motel lobby and smashed his way into the private office. There, he allegedly executed father, wife, and daughter at close range. Their son Robert woke up to the sound of a scream and the gunshots and rushed over to find the massacre and an empty cash register. On March 15th, Tookie and a friend were pulled over and the cops found a double-barrel shotgun in the trunk. At the station, Tookie's friend was questioned on their role in the 2 robberies and 4 murders, and he gave up Tookie. Tookie's trial drew widespread attention, painting a chilling portrait of his ruthlessness. Evidence piled up against him, and the horror of his actions were laid bare for the court. On March 31st, 1981, Tukey Williams was convicted of all 4 murders and both robberies and was sentenced to death. Tookie denied his involvement in the murders until his death.
Alright, so y'all seen that right there. So that what is eventually took Tookie down. So like I told y'all at the beginning, once I stated claim to the game, Monster and Tookie was the main 2 I looked up to. You know what I'm saying? It was the main 2 I looked up to. That was the recipe. I was buffing, stayed on that buffing, you know what I'm saying? I was right, you know what I'm saying? Stayed working out every day, you know what I'm saying? Every day eating right, you know what I'm saying? And pushing that line, you know what I'm saying? Pushing a hard, steadfast line. Now, once I got to reading Tookie book and what he went down for and things like that, it always confused me. This always confused me about what he went down for. These homicides, you know what I'm saying? Particularly that store homicide, you know what I'm saying? Because these other homicides is kind of news to me. I can't remember back then if I had recognition of the Asian family that they talking about, the husband, wife, and daughter situation. But I'm talking about this 7-Eleven or whatever convenience store robbery that the dude was out in front of sweeping, allegedly, and allegedly took him in the back and executed him and stuff like that. It's always had me conflicted in the book and reading his book, because that dude was like still around and our people knew him. And for you, like, I just feel like for you to have the stigma of recognition of being the King Crip, of being that dude, that business should have got handled without a doubt. You know what I'm saying? Without a doubt. Definitely if it was a lie. But nobody was there to say that this situation was a lie but Tookie and those other co-defendants. But it looked like Tookie was the only one through on death row because the stigma behind his name. And you hear all type of stuff. You hear that Tookie didn't do it, that somebody else did it, or it was other people, and they just wanted Tookie off the street, so the police, you know what I'm saying, made this dude say it. Like, you ain't heard all type of stuff, all type of rumors. I heard that the dude was getting beat in the interrogation room till he was like, okay, it was Tookie, it was Stanley type situation. So you never know the game that the government play. You know what I'm saying? When you become public enemy, when you become public enemy number 1 to them. You know what I'm saying? It's search and destroy. And I don't know if this is the case in Tookie, but this could be a case. You know what I'm saying? Something else I got to speak on slightly before we get back into the rest of this content is that Tookie know himself the time he came around. And if it's true on which the essence I speak about who inserted him into the cripping or brought him around to the cripping, I don't even understand why he allowed himself to play the scapegoat or sacrificial lamb and saying that he was the founder and or co-founder of the Crips. You know what I'm saying? Like, you feel me? It's all type of different reasons that people pass away, people die out here. So, like, you know, die for your truth and about your truth. You know what I'm saying? But at times, people do play the sacrificial lamb for the tribe. And I'm thinking that, for me, in my opinion, that's what Tookie was, the sacrificial lamb. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if he did these robberies. I don't know if he didn't do these robberies. But we know these robberies was placed on him, and these robberies was his demise. And let's get back into the rest of this content. And you already know it's the halfway and the half effect. We're going to commentate.
Leader of the Crips gang, Stanley Tukey Williams.
Convicted quadruple murderer Stanley Tukey Williams.
Stanley Tukey Williams.
Stanley Tukey Williams. I used to be the king of the Crips. Look at my kingdom now. This place does not make you a man. Look at me.
In the stillness of a prison cell, a Nobel Peace Prize nominee waited for his last hours to pass. Stanley Tukey Williams, once a feared leader and pivotal figure in the formation of the Crips gang, now found his name alongside Desmond Tutu, the Dalai Lama, and Mother Teresa. He had spent years behind bars, turning his life around, writing books for kids, and speaking out against gang violence. But on this day, as midnight approached, even the hope he inspired couldn't change what was coming next. It was 1979 when Williams, high on PCP and with 3 friends, went on a violent spree.
Never sue the other driver after a car accident. There's a better way to get paid a way bigger check without having to go to court.
At a 7-Eleven, he forced 26-year-old Albert Owens to his knees and shot him in the back, later mocking the noises Owens made as he died. Just days later, Williams struck again, taking the lives of an immigrant Chinese couple and their 41-year-old daughter, while stealing less than $100 cash in a brutal motel robbery. Now, after years on death row, Williams' time had finally run out. The morning started like any other, oatmeal and milk for breakfast. On death row, there's no special treatment. Your last day is like any other, just as death treats everyone the same. At around 1, his legal team pressed forward, presenting every piece of evidence they could to sway the decision, underscoring Stanley Williams' efforts to deter young people from gang life. They argued that his unique credibility had become a powerful force against violence. But law enforcement officials and victims' rights advocates pushed back, labeling him as a fraud, a man who'd never truly renounced his past. Prosecutors pointed out that Williams had refused to break the code of silence by sharing gang secrets with authorities. Deputy District Attorney John Monahan remarked, "What message does that send to young children when Mr. Williams, who supposedly has their attention, tells them, 'Don't snitch, don't talk to police'?" Williams' case had another layer of complexity due to a past connection with Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. The two had shared a background on Venice Beach in the 1970s. Schwarzenegger, then a rising bodybuilder, trained there, as did Williams, known in the fitness community before his criminal activities took over. According to Williams' biography, Schwarzenegger had once complimented him on his physique, even offering posing advice. Williams reportedly hoped this acquaintance would give Schwarzenegger insight into his character's change. But despite his team's appeals and petitions to multiple courts, each was denied. Just the day before, the California Supreme Court had rejected his request, as did the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and finally, the U.S. Supreme Court. Throughout these last attempts, Williams maintained his innocence in the 1979 murders that led to his conviction. He had become an outspoken advocate against gang violence, authoring books like Tookie's New Year's Resolution and Gangs and How to Avoid Them, and founding the Tukey Williams Foundation to help youth avoid gang involvement. Prominent supporters, including Jamie Foxx, who portrayed him in the movie Redemption, Snoop Dogg, and Danny Glover, rallied to his cause. In a final bid, Williams' lawyers presented statements from 3 new witnesses who might exonerate him. Nonetheless, Schwarzenegger ultimately denied clemency, suggesting any past connections were irrelevant. He continued.
So, Tookie go down for these robberies, and these robberies really, as you see, and if you pay attention and understand, it really was about him. Like, you don't hear nothing about the other co-defendants, the dudes supposedly told, or who else. They said it was 3 people, right? Unless I'm just tripping. Or was it 2 people? Whether it was 2 or it was 3 people, the whole case was surrounded around Tookie, and this was a political campaign scam, as there always is. You know, a lot of people, you know, on the street element don't think about campaign, don't think about presidencies, don't think about the government, none of that. You don't even think about the branches, the small, minute stuff they taught you in school about the political branches, colonies, and stuff like that. Once you in the streets and you under the influence, all that stuff fly out your mind. You know what I'm saying? And if you pay attention to when these campaigns come around, that's when you start seeing indictments. You start seeing these gang indictments. You start seeing these drug indictments. Oh, we cracking down on this. Oh, we cracking down on that. You know what I'm saying? But like, man, it's a crazy game out here. So like I said, I'm not here to plead his innocence or to say he's guilty. It's not right for me to pass judgment on that situation. Those people already passed judgment on this situation. What I dislike about this situation is how the situation happened with this Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know what I'm saying? Because him and Arnold Schwarzenegger, they have a pass on Venice Beach, to where Arnold Schwarzenegger is just trying to come up. You know what I'm saying? He's over here from Austria. He fresh over here from Austria. You know, an immigrant, rightfully. You know what I'm saying? Probably came over here, got his papers. I don't know if he was over here on any endorsements because he was into the bodybuilding thing, or maybe he just moved over here to sunny Los Angeles, California, and was going to Venice Beach and decided, like, let me get in this bodybuilding business. You know, I can create the physique or whatnot. So, you know, Tookie was natural. Tookie wasn't on no steroids, you know what I'm saying? Probably was just, you know, sherm and lifting weights, you know what I'm saying? And some people said the man used to drink yeast and just buff. I don't know how true that is. But however, him and Arnold Schwarzenegger have a past. Arnold Schwarzenegger, he comes over here, he goes from bodybuilding, gets into the movie industry, he's Terminator, all this type of stuff. Then out of nowhere, he has a political event, married into political families, all type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Y'all see what's been going on over here. Like, a lot of stuff been made a spectacle. It's just like anybody, you know, if you got the right connections and money, you can go from Joe Blow at Olive Garden and just to the mayor of a city, you know what I'm saying? And then work your way up 15 years down the line, 20 down the line, you're president, you know what I'm saying? Or you the governor or something like that. Depending on how they do it and how they play the game. So, this dude is residing over Tookie case. He's the governor. He could have stopped the killing from happening. Now, this one thing. Why execute him? Now, he can sit here and say that the family of the victims didn't have justice. It was all type of loopholes in this case. It was all type of crazy stuff being said, all type of crazy stuff going on. He could have just kept the man with life in prison without the possibility of parole. It's a lot of people that been on death row, you know what I'm saying? That ain't went nowhere, that ain't got killed. It's a lot of people in there for these heinous crimes, Charles Manson's, all type of dudes. And it was just like, this seemed kind of personal right here. And then you got them coming forth with new evidence. But I understand they mind state too, like, oh, well, why this Bennett come forth? So they don't want to allow stuff. But like I said, this man did all type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Wrote children books, had a Nobel Peace Prize, and all type of things. But I just think that he kind of allowed the celebrity of being called the leader of the Crips or the king of the Crips stigma help place him in that position. But all in all, you know, y'all see Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't trying to hear nothing. He wasn't trying to hear nothing of any new evidence. His mind made up, and this was a political strategy, nor did he care. And, you know, for years, his own country of Austria had abandoned him. It was like, you know, we don't believe in this, what you over there doing, you know what I'm saying? But he came over here and lost the beliefs of his country and got caught up with the United States political games, and he pressed play on Tookie. He didn't care about no past Venice Beach, working out, you know what I'm saying? None of that. He didn't care about none of that. He was here to stand on the business at hand that them people have poised. But with that being said, we're going to get into the rest of this footage, and you already know it's the Hef way, the Hef effect. We're going to commentate.
met with his lawyers and 6 visitors. His final visitor was Fred Davis Jackson, a 67-year-old from Richmond who had been visiting Williams since 1997. Williams, wearing his usual prison uniform, seemed in good spirits, despite the somber circumstances. "He's so big," Jackson recalled. "It's hard to get your arms around him." Under close watch, Williams had lost his appetite. A small tray with turkey was set before him, but he didn't touch it, drinking only water and milk, while Jackson admitted he didn't have an appetite either. "We said goodbye like we always do," Jackson remembered, noting how he told Williams, "I'll see you later," as if everything was normal. For Jackson, it wasn't just a goodbye. He knew Williams would be with him in spirit, no matter what happened. Only minutes before being moved to the death cell, with a guard nearby, Williams gave each visitor a private farewell, one by one. Soon after, it was time for Williams to move.
Mr. Williams, ready to move?
By 6 p.m., Stanley Williams was strip-searched, given a fresh set of clothes, and moved to a 45-square-foot death cell just steps from the death chamber, where a sergeant and 2 officers watched him closely. He spent the evening reading some of the 50 letters he'd received that day, from places as far as Italy and Israel, many from children who wrote that they were praying for him. A prison chaplain was available if he sought counsel, but Williams did not reach out. He also declined a sedative offered before the execution, though he once said he didn't want anyone he knew to witness what he called the sick and perverted spectacle of his death. He later asked for 5 witnesses to attend. Meanwhile, the execution team began final preparations nearby, setting up needles, tubes, and chemicals in the prison's former gas chamber, now converted for lethal injections. Outside the prison gates, about 2,000 protesters gathered, hoping for a last-minute reprieve for Stanley Williams. Among them were celebrities, activists, and anti-death penalty advocates, all pleading for his life to be spared, yelling, "Tookie must live. Tookie doesn't deserve to die." Civil rights leader Jesse Jackson, who had advised Williams that day, criticized the decision to proceed with the execution, saying Governor Schwarzenegger had chosen revenge over redemption and was using Williams as a trophy in a flawed system. Jackson insisted that taking Williams' life wouldn't make anyone safer or more secure, calling it a political move for toughness. Inside the prison, Williams stayed composed, declining a final meal and choosing only small cartons of milk. At 9:30 p.m.
Wait, if you were detained at any San Bernardino juvenile detention facility, such as High Desert or Gilbert Street,
Williams' lawyers made a last attempt to save him, filing an emergency petition that cited a 4th witness. This witness claimed that other inmates had tried to recruit him in a scheme to frame Williams, but Schwarzenegger quickly denied this final appeal. With that, the outcome was sealed, and Williams' fate was set. As midnight struck, Stanley Williams walked into the execution chamber, a semi-octagonal room bathed in a pale, cold light, with a padded gurney waiting at its center. He lay down calmly as guards secured him with straps, one keeping a steady hand on his shoulder. A nurse began the process of inserting the IV lines, but she struggled to find a vein in his left arm, accidentally drawing blood in the attempt. The insertion took nearly 20 minutes, with staff having particular difficulty with the left arm. During the preparation, witness Crystal Carrion from the Sacramento Bee described Williams as appearing restless. At one point, he asked, "You doing that right?" as staff continued to search for a vein. He looked toward his loved ones, 5 of whom were present, and mouthed something, though his words were inaudible to journalists. At 12:21 a.m., the first drug, 5 grams of sodium pentothal to render him unconscious, flowed into his veins. It was soon followed by 50 cc's of pancuronium bromide to halt his breathing and 50 cc's of potassium chloride to stop his heart. Shortly afterward, he lay still, with the room full of witnesses silently watching his unmoving body. 3 of his supporters, including Barbara Becknell, a former Los Angeles Times reporter, cried out in anguish. The state of California just killed an innocent man. Hence, the final announcement was made.
The unofficial time of death for condemned inmate Stanley Williams. It's 12:35 p.m. We will have an official time of death when the warden arrives to give a brief statement.
He had no last words. Stanley Tukey Williams' execution raises tough questions about justice, redemption.
Exactly how they described it, I would have felt the same way, you know what I'm saying, that it was perverted and sick, you know what I'm saying, sickening in a way that they unalived them, you know what I'm saying, but he didn't want nobody to watch, and then he did pick 5 people to watch, and it was crazy. The 3 little chemicals that they used are 5 milligrams of this, 50 milligrams of this, 3 milligrams of this, to stop the breathing, to stop the heart, to knock them unconscious, like, just throwing chemicals in you, man. So it definitely was a cold game, but yeah, they definitely fought for Tookie. I remember them times. I remember them protesters was out there. They was trying to come with more, you know what I'm saying, evidence. They're trying to buy time. If not, you know what I'm saying, just all together, just, stop the death. But they didn't care. They had their mind made up. And like I said, Tookie was the sacrificial lamb, you know what I'm saying, because there was other Crips, that was around and before Tookie time. But Tookie held the bulk of the weight, and being said at times the person who started Crip and as being a co-founder, you know what I'm saying? But that just attests to his person, to show you what type of person he was, to have that ring and monotone. It was corrected as far as Crip coming off the east side of South Central, you know what I'm saying, of Los Angeles, from Raymond, Washington, then by way coming to the west. But I think by way of that west was through Donald Archie Sweetback, and then Tookie. Tookie came, threw it on his back, made it more monumental and bigger than it was, because he was on TV. Y'all see him, he posing, he doing his stuff and doing everything like that. But I also think that this also cost him his life, because it allowed him to be the sacrificial lamb and to be like, oh, because of the Crips, oh, it just started as east side or west side, and then it spawned off to these many subdivisions, and now they killing each other. This happening over there, this happening over there. All this is the result of you. And, they blamed everything on him, you know what I'm saying? And in these situations, stuff that don't have anything to do with you will be blamed on you. You will take the bulk of this for unsolved murders and everything, you know what I'm saying? And him being placed on death row was the bulk of this. Now, something else that I wanted to point out that I didn't understand is they were saying, although he won the Nobel Peace Prize and was writing in children's books, that he was still telling the children, don't snitch and talk to the cops. I don't know if that is true, but I think that's something I'm going to go look up, because that was crazy. And the board is definitely looking for anything. You can have clear conduct for like 3-4 years. They're going to be like, oh, well, you had a write-up 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Come back a year, 2 years, and see what's going on. It's just like, man, hold on. You see, I've been violent year after year. I've been doing this and that. I'm showing you that I'm creating a passageway to correct and walk in a narrow light that you guys fancy as civilized. And they basically said what Tookie was doing was just an act, basically to get out of jail. That's basically what they were saying. But like I said, coming up through the ranks and going through the jails, the YAs, that's where I got to learn who Tookie was from different Crips, how they remembered it. And believe it, homie, every homie don't have a different story or was there at some point in time. And some of these stories are similar and stuff like that. But I'm not going to lie, man. I had a big dislike for Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he did that, because it didn't make no right for him to take that man's life, I wouldn't even watch a Terminator movie. I still ain't watched a Terminator movie to this day. Tookie passed in 2005. And since around that time or before, I still ain't watched none of them movies, because it was BS. And just like, for the United States as a whole, for even allowing somebody who was, was an immigrant, even though he got his citizenship, to become up in political and to judge another American citizen and hit the gavel on death, because that man, still deserved his life, I don't know if he did it or not. Did nobody in these parties, all parties involved, the ones he was in jail for that was allegedly dead, deserve to die or anything like that. But let's just go with the narrative that he did do it, because, you got people say he didn't do it. let's go with the narrative that he did do it. You know what I'm saying? Under the stress of PCP and probably no sleep and whatever else other deranged activities, you hallucinating, all type of stuff going on. You're not in your right mind. It ain't like this man just went in there and premeditated this, you know what I'm saying, soberly, you know what I'm saying, if he did do this at all. But as y'all see, you know, they gave him them lethal injections. It kind of took a minute. They said it took the nurse like 20 minutes to find a vein, you know what I'm saying, because he was so big. They finally found the vein. You know, they hit him with the poison, you know what I'm saying, and, you know, they took him up out of here, you know what I'm saying, but rest in peace to him, man. But I just seen these segments, man. I had to, you know, put my little spin and or opinion on it, man. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed it, man. Y'all can get in the chats, man. Y'all talk, I talk back, man. You know, I really ignore the trollers. Really ain't got too much to say to them or care what they saying, though. We gonna conclude this there. It's your boy, Young and Hefe. Don't care about number what the check say. Make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe, because it don't cost you nothing, and press that button. And if you ring that notification bell, I'm going to bring you mail.
Keeping it real and showing love, absolutely free. Still some of the hardest shit for a lot of you bitch ass niggas to do. So if you ain't a bitch ass nigga, let me see you keep it real and show me some love and share this post right here, cake ass nigga.